Hi, welcome back. We are halfway through season 1, and I'm so agradecida and thankful to these amazing Latinas who have allowed me to share their stories. My next guest is Gabriela from Pan Dulce Studio. She's an amazing calligraphy and stationery artist here in the Chicago area. We met on Instagram and I fell in love with all her photos and her work. And then I reached out to her to actually meet her in person. This was pre-pandemic, of course. We shared our stories over coffee at one of my favorite cafes in Chicago, Brew Brew, and from there my admiration for her just grew. In this episode, she shares her heart and her passion for uniting people through her work. So I hope you enjoy my chat with Gabriela. All right, I'm so excited to have Gabriela on today as a podcast guest. I get to talk to her about her story and the business that she's built. So I'm just so excited to bring her story to all of our listeners today. Her business is Pan Dulce Studio, which you're going to hear about it, and it's going to be amazing. It's going to be hilarious, and I can't wait for us to just dive in. So why don't you introduce yourself?
Yeah, thanks again, Karina. I'm super pumped to be here. So my name is Gabriela Pedroza. I am the owner and founder of Pan Dulce Studio, and we connect people across the country and across the street with fun and pretty details. So it is a design business. We specialize in stationery and calligraphy, and I started it around 2 years ago. It actually turns 2 years on Sunday. That really crept up on me. I was looking at my calendar and I'm like, how has it been 2 years? Usually I'm big into celebrations, but this year's been so crazy. I think it got away from me. But yeah, that's my business.
Oh my goodness. I remember when we first met, I met you through Instagram, and I actually met your husband first because I went to an event and I was like, oh,
Yes.
Pan Dulce is going to be there. I want to meet this person. And I go up to the booth and I'm like, for
Where is
some
she?
reason, I thought this was a woman who was leading
I
this business.
don't think she
Um,
has a beard.
I know. But I met your husband and he was so nice. He helped me and he answered some of my questions. And then later I reached out through Instagram to meet up for coffee. And it's so funny because we don't live that far from each other. But it's still like social media connects us,
Oh yeah.
like whether we're in the same town or across the country. And I'm grateful for social media and
Yeah.
Instagram in particular. um, but yeah, then we sat down, we had coffee, and we have been like following each other, encouraging each
Yeah.
other ever since. And so I'm so excited to be able to celebrate 2 years of
Yeah.
your business. So
Thank
why
you.
don't you tell me like how that start? How did you get to the 2 year mark?
Yeah. So um November 8th is my 2 year mark, but my journey towards this started in around July of that year, of 2018. I was an analyst at a healthcare company, and I was there for about 3 years. And I had been working really, really hard towards a promotion there, like a new job and a new outside of the corporate office. I really wanted to be in the field and to have my own team, my own clinic to manage. I was going to be working with doctors, had my own budget, had my own everything. And it was just like on paper what I really, really wanted. And once I got the offer, it felt like, oh, I got it. All right. Like I didn't feel like I feel like we all have that feeling of like something we really, really want. And then we're like, I got it. It's so exciting. I did not get that feeling. And I mean, my business exists because I am a very like, let's celebrate, let's spread love, da da da. And the fact that I got this job offer and it felt um kind of like, oh, okay. And I kept telling myself, oh, I'll do it for a year. Like, I'll just do it for a year. Let's see how it works out. And I had a few people close to me say, why are you like putting a timestamp on it? That seems a little, not normal, or like it didn't feel something that was authentic to me because I'm an all in person. So after Long story short, there, like after a few days, I decided I did not want this job, but it also meant I couldn't stay at that company anymore. I didn't want to be there. I didn't want to keep being an analyst on a team that wasn't a fit for me anymore. I didn't have the support that I needed anymore. Like the 3 years were great, but I just hit a point where it's like I didn't outgrow it. It just like my needs changed and I had to like do something else. Thankfully, I had you can't just like make that decision without planning a little bit. Thankfully, I had, enough savings and I had a husband who can support me, but I came in a few days after accepting the job offer and I said, I can't accept this job offer and I'm giving my notice and I left. I didn't leave that day. I wasn't like, might drop by, but I was like, I'm leaving and this is what I decided. And I didn't know it was the right choice until I said it. Like, I was terrified. It's like, how can I leave a job without anything lined up? Um, turn down this job offer that I had worked so hard for, and everyone knew I had worked so hard for it. So it was just a really tough decision. But once I said, like, I declined the offer, I quit, it felt really good and it felt right. I was like, okay, this is right. So then my plan was just to do this pan dulce on the side. I just wanted a creative outlet. I've always been very creative and I wanted to keep this on the side. But once I started it, I couldn't stop. And my husband was like, I think you should consider doing this full time. And I thought that I didn't have any like a blueprint for what entrepreneurship looked like, what business ownership looked like. I didn't have the community that I have now. I have you, like you at least like have this creative business and like now I know other people who have their own businesses too, whether it's on the side or full time. But back then I didn't. So I went into it and my plan was to like be unemployed for a bit. I wanted to because I didn't want to be in a situation where I was working towards something and then I was like, wait, where am I? Like, did I want to be here? On paper, it looked great, but in practice, it was like, this isn't fulfilling. So I did it full time. I decided that around like August, September of 2018, and then I officially launched in November. And yeah, it started out. Um, I don't share this often. It actually started off as like me wanting to be a wedding planner. Like for
I didn't know that.
a hot second, I was like, wedding planning sounds fun. And then like I think that lasted maybe 2 days, maybe one day. I was like, maybe wedding plans. And I'm like, actually, I don't want to plan weddings. I just want to make things, And wedding planners do create and make things too. I'm not trying to, that is not what I'm trying to say at all. Like, trying to put them down. It's just different. Like stationery and then wedding planning are different. And I just wanted to go the stationery calligraphy route. I did not know calligraphy at all. At all. I was just like, yeah, I'm gonna do it. Looking back, I'm like, what was I thinking? I had no experience. I did not have the skill needed that like my business is based on now. So go me, but I don't. That took a lot of guts. I think I was just like, I have nothing to lose. So then I went for it, and here I am 2 years later. And it's evolved a lot. And then I know we're going to talk about that too. But yeah, that's how I started, and that's how I've been doing it ever since.
Yeah. So, I wanted to ask, I know that for like coming from a Latino family, it is so I know that I went to school and I went to college, and even though like I loved school and I loved education, I was doing it for in part for my family.
Mm-hmm.
And how was that conversation like with your family,
Mm-hmm.
knowing that you were going to quit like a secure job, one that
Yeah.
you had been like going for the promotion and it was working out, and then you were going to stop to do something creative?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It was it was funny. So when I was deciding to leave my job, I mean, I agonized over it. I mean, it was like I cried, I had anxiety attack. I mean, like, you don't, that's a hard decision, and my body knew that. So it was just like, Gabby, we got to figure this out. And I was allowing myself to explore that. So as I was talking to people that I trusted, even mentors, really close friends, my husband, who was like number one in this whole decision making process and like number one supporter too, I called my mom and my dad, like my parents, I called them. But my mom and I are like besties, of course. So I was like, Mom, like, I think I want to do this. Like, I don't know. And I was crying and I was just like, she's going to tell me to calm down and like, don't leave this job. Like, don't do it. Um, and she super surprised me. I guess I shouldn't have been surprised. She's like a super supportive and sweet person. Of course, she said what she said, but in the moment, I was like, "What?" She said, "Like, Mija, you're not happy. I, like, you're crying. Like, you're hurting. Like, don't do it." My husband had just graduated grad school and got a job, so my mom was like, "You were supporting him." Like, and not just financially, she was totally talking about like emotionally, mentally, like making sure that we were both working together to make sure that he was good for grad school. She's like, lean on him now. Like, I think it's time to kind of let go. And I'm a very like nurturing person. I want to like take care of people. I want to take care of myself. So when I felt like I couldn't, I wasn't taking care of myself anymore, she's like, let someone else take care of you. Leave this job. You're going to be fine. And she just kept telling me, she's like, you've been working since you were like 15, 16. I'm the only natural born citizen in my family. And I mean, that's a thing though. Like when you have siblings who are immigrants and working was just really hard. I mean, DACA now exists, but like I still have a sibling who doesn't have citizenship. He's on the path, but it takes years. And my sister just became a citizen and she was 35, 36. And she came here when she was 7. So it was like I had this privilege of working. So that was another layer of like I had the privilege of having not having that obstacle. And it's like, okay, well, I gotta go. Like I have to keep working. I have to stay in this job. I have to make money, right? Like that's a thing. Like I grew up pretty low income. Like being self-sufficient was like it still is. It's a point of pride for me. So leaving that job was super hard because I was thinking of my family. Totally. And that comes up in therapy all the time. Like please, like we should always talk about like what's really there. Is it really this job or is there something else? And for me there was something else. And I think once I had my mom's blessing, it was like, all right, I'm gone. Like, let's do it. Yeah, you're right. I have been working my whole life. Like I've applied for jobs before. I can do it again. Like that's not the hardest part. The hardest part is like keep, going with it and like doing the motions and then like not feeling fulfilled. So I didn't know I needed to have my mom tell me like, hey, it's gonna be okay. Once I told my siblings, they were also, I don't remember specifically what they said, but I remember they were like, oh, that's interesting, like, and they were so super supportive. But I just remember like my mom specifically was like, leave that job. Like, you have so many people in your corner, you're going to be fine. And like, she was right. I'm totally fine. Like it worked out. That was the hardest part. Um, and I did it. So I was like, oh, okay. That wasn't that bad. I mean, it was bad, but I got through it.
Yeah, like even if you have the 100% of support from your partner, whether it's like, I don't know, a best friend or a spouse, like it's that extra, like your mom or your dad telling you it's okay, like you can do this, or
Yeah.
take time for yourself. Um, and I think that's so great that she did that and she said that because um, I feel like so many people get stuck in that fear and then
Mm-hmm.
they're always wondering, like, what if I had left
Mm-hmm.
a year ago and could already be building a business? Or what if
Mm-hmm.
I had left for this other job? And they're like that, like we have as children of immigrants, we have the added pressure to um, go to school, get an education, get a good job, but also for ourselves, we have that like desire to be fulfilled, like internally. And
Mhm.
sometimes those are like at war with each other. Um, and if you don't have that support from your family, it could be like 1,000 times harder and
Mhm.
um, harder to process emotionally and then
Mhm.
harder to actually move forward.
And
Go
another
ahead.
thing to note is, I mentioned I was talking to my mentors and my friends and my coworkers and my old boss that I like at the company because I switched bosses. She like, I loved her and like I talked to her about it. All of these people who are like, college educated, probably have masters, like they're like professional. They're the ones who should have the answers. And they were like, all right, think about this and da da da. And my mom, who again, on paper, not educated, didn't make it past sixth grade just because of the circumstances. And even her mom fought for her to go to school when during a time when like women, the girls weren't sent to school, like the boys were prioritized, like that's real. So to have her tell me like not just tell me, hey, do this, but also for me to like take her advice over someone else's. It's like this girl's lived, like she knows what she's doing. It's not just about climbing the professional ladder and everything. It's about like how are you going to spend your time? Like I was really in anxious and stressed every day I went into work. That's not a way to live. And it took someone like my mom, not just because she's my mom, but like an immigrant, like not educated on paper, but just had a life like super lived to tell me like, hey, don't do it. It's not worth it.
Yeah, that's great. Um, okay, so I want to go back to you building your business. And now you said that you like didn't know calligraphy, you didn't know like how to do anything, but you knew that you wanted to do it. Um,
Mhm.
how did you get from not knowing how to do it to building a successful business that is based on an art form that you had to learn as you went?
Yeah. Um, I I'm still in shock of 2 years ago me. Like I've always not liked, I've always loved like hand lettering and stuff, but I never ever took it up as, which is kind of shocking. I never took it up as a hobby because it looked hard. I'm like, man, that looks hard. Like this, that is a skill. Like it acquired over years of practice and da da da. And like I just was like, well, if I want to do this, I have to start. Um, and actually, behind me, this is my office, but like up here somewhere, there are some like notebooks that I bought, just like white paper, like bound, like in a notebook. And I bought the markers that I had researched to like teach yourself calligraphy and lettering, and I just went at it. I mean, I was technically fun employed at that point, not knowing I was going to
Yeah.
do this full time quite yet. So I was like, this is great. I mean, this is what I wanted to do, right? Like pick up a hobby and then look for a job and see what happens. Cause I really did have that much confidence in myself. And I still do. I was like, things will work out. So it was just hours of like, I mean, man, my early stuff was so bad. And even it was just, I'm like, what was I thinking? Like, that's not, I thought I was like not talented, but I kept going. And then I remember just like perfecting a letter, and I'm like, I couldn't do that before. Like my wrist didn't flick that way. And then just hours and hours and hours of practice, like my hand just got really comfortable with it. And then I developed a style, and then I was able to like, I was like, okay, let's do it a little bit more flourishy. And then I developed another style. Okay, now I'm gonna teach myself pointed pen, which is not easy. You cannot just pick up a pointed pen, like, and that just because it's hard. And I had to buy one and just sit here and be very humbled with my really crappy pointed pen calligraphy. And I just had to keep doing it. And then I got good at it. Okay, now let's try another style, and just like building on top of that. And calligraphy is just one part of it, of my business, but I use it for everything, right? Like I use it for my personal like planning, or like my own personal cards that I send out, or events that I go to. I mean, not anymore, but like when, my friends had bridal showers and stuff, like it's just so nice to like be able to share this, and it doesn't cost me anything, right? Like it's just like I just show up. So it's just like hours of practice. And on top of that, like doing the stationary part, that's hard. Like I didn't know what I was doing, and it was just like scouring Instagram, following people, like doing my own research on the side, like Googling and buying my own paper, not knowing what I was doing, like putting it together and then being like, okay, this works, this doesn't work. Um, it's just like I always say, like starting a business is, it's not just what you do. It is mostly like it's all the same for all business owners. You all have to do like your own marketing, your own like accounting, your own administrative work, your own orders. Oh my gosh, the post office. I love the post office. The workers there know me very well. But even just like it's a chore sometimes. I'm like, oh, I have to go to the post office. It takes 33 minutes door to door. And like I've already timed it. And it's just like it takes time. So we always have to be our own everything in the beginning. And that's how I've been able to like connect with people, because it's not just about calligraphy and paper, it's everything else. So just like learning all of that and being like, I don't have a job. This is my job now. So I went all in, and that's how I've just been building it. Just Google has been my best friend. But also reaching out to other creatives and other business owners. People have been like so like gracious with their knowledge and everything. And I always do the same when people reach out to me. I'm like, yeah, let's go. What do you want to learn? Like, here are my vendors. Here's the pens that I use, because at first I didn't know and it was so hard for me.
That's funny. I sometimes say like, let's go look up at Google University because
Yeah.
I don't know what. And sometimes it's just
Yeah.
like starting with like a simple like phrase. Like I don't even know the question to ask
Yes.
Google.
Sometimes I'm like, paper that looks shiny and it's thin, and it's like, I don't know, like I didn't know what it was called, and I was just like Google, or like looking at hashtags, because I also didn't want to like and I'm sure you feel this too, like you don't want to just be like, oh, what pen do you use, or like what camera lens is that, or that, like it's just do your own research too, right? So it's like, okay, let's search for something very abstract.
Yeah.
And then you figure it out, because that's who we are.
Yes, exactly. It's so funny because when people do ask me like which lens or which camera, and I'm just like, do you actually know what you're asking me? Because I could give you 1,000 different answers. So let's like narrow it down. Um, but at the when we started, like I was the one saying like, which camera should I get? Which lens should I
Yeah.
get?
You're like, this looks good. And then 3 months later, you're like, why did I do that?
I know. But yeah, that's so encouraging that they're like some people think like, oh, I didn't go to school for um, graphic design, or I didn't go to school for photography, which I didn't. I took one photography class and it was film photography, and then everything else I learned like actually doing it. And I feel like that's
Mhm.
when there's an art skill,
Mhm.
like that's how you're going to learn. And it's actually, like you said, being humble and being willing to mess up and not be good,
Oh, yeah.
and but to keep at it and to keep trying different tools,
Mhm.
keep trying different, like you said, papers,
Yeah.
researching, reading books. Um, so yeah, so it's not impossible if you haven't gone to school for a specific skill. You just need to have the what's the word, desire and drive and
Yeah.
grit to keep going.
Mhm.
So yeah, so we learned how it started with you like
Yeah.
keep going at it, keep trying. How did you then, like, what was your first product? How did you turn your new skill into Pan Dulce Studios?
So at first, and I actually had someone ask me recently, like, how did you, I had this business idea, like, it was a very simple question, but I can tell that she like, because I was there, like, you agonize over like, what do I do first? She's like, do I set up my Instagram before I have a website? And I'm like, you can do whatever you want. It's just like, you just have to start. Just with calligraphy, like, I was terrified. Even now, there are certain types of calligraphy I would love to learn, but it's like, I'm afraid to start because it's like, what if I'm not good at it? And this is coming from someone as like, I consider myself a calligrapher, and like, I consider myself pretty good at it, at least my style. And I'm still scared to start something new there, right? Because it's scary. Like, starting something new is scary. So once I decided I wanted to do paper design, like, I'm like, oh, that can mean anything. Like, I didn't want to just do greeting cards. I also wanted to do wedding invites. So putting out, like, I didn't have clients at first, of course, like, no one has clients at first. Once you start, especially since like I had just announced it. So I was just creating for myself, like, just like I said, like, buying paper, figuring out styles. Like, I consider myself to have like a good eye. I still don't know what that means, but like, you can like, all right, these colors look good together. Like, these textures, like, bond well. Like, and we're gonna make it work. So I would make fake invitation suites and start posting it, and that's what people do. Even to this day, I still create fake invitation suites just because I'm like, I really want to do that, but a client hasn't asked me to do it, so I'm gonna put it out there. And I've had clients be like, I want that, and I'm like, oh, awesome. I created that for myself. I haven't had as much time to do that. And not just because of the pandemic, we'll get to that too. But it's always nice to create for yourself. So in the beginning, I had to create for myself just out of business survival. I'm like, I have to put something out there, or else what are people going to look at when they're trying to decide on a vendor? So I would put that out there. I still remember my first client. It was someone like a friend of a friend from U of I, from when I went to where I went to college in Champaign, and she was so excited to work with me, and I was terrified. I had never done a client meeting. I had nothing to show her. I barely had my pricing set up. I like all of these things where you're like, oh my God, this isn't just about booking a client. It's like process beginning to end. And I'm always thinking about the client experience. So my first client, no experience. I'm like, oh my God, what am I doing? And she knew she was my first client. I was really open with her, and she was awesome. Like, very flexible. I messed up a few times, and she was like, it's fine. And like, she was like, we worked together, and that's how I got my first client. And then I'm like, okay, now I went through that whole process. What went wrong? Everything. And what went well? A few things. So I just kept learning. And then in 2019, I booked almost like 30 wedding invitation clients, which is a lot. Cause that's a lot. And I felt like I was saying yes a lot. And I loved all my clients. Like, they're all so different, but they were all, I don't think I've had like a bad client experience, just because I don't know, like, I've gotten lucky, but I just had to keep creating. And like, that first client, that led to someone else. And then all of a sudden, because I launched in the winter, everyone was starting to like get their things together for spring and summer weddings. Then I got a bunch of inquiries, and then it just picked up. And then at one point I was like, oh my gosh, I'm behind on, my accounting, or I haven't like done a call to action Instagram post in 2 months. Like, how have I, like, everything falls through the cracks. But it was a nice problem to have in the beginning, because I was being challenged by every single client. Everyone wants something different. And that's awesome for me because then it's like, okay, I'm getting challenged in a way that I wouldn't have been challenged otherwise. So yeah, I just had to keep creating. And even now with once the pandemic happened and weddings were done, so I had to completely shift and focus on greeting cards and stuff. I don't know if you want to talk about that right now or next or
Yeah, I
um
mean, so you started with wedding, like a wedding suite,
mhm,
and that's like I know because I photograph them whenever I have to
mhm,
photograph a wedding. It's like the invitation, maybe a save the date, the menu card, place cards if they order,
mhm,
table numbers, like all of the
yeah,
stationary part. Um,
yeah,
plus like mailing all of it. Were you
yeah,
doing like the calligraphy addresses as well?
yeah.
Oh my goodness.
So a lot of those as well too. Not every client, but even just one client, it's
Yeah.
a feat.
Yeah. So, yeah, talk to me about the shift from the wedding industry in 2019 to um, like maybe how you were shifting
Yeah.
because of the pandemic, but also because you had a lot of work and trying to like see
Mhm.
how to make business work, like not just the art part, the fun part of business, but
Yeah.
also the business management and while
Mhm.
still trying to have a life. Because I feel like
Yeah.
we all go so hard at the beginning because we want, like,
Yeah.
we're excited for clients, but then we realize, like, oh my goodness, I don't have time for anything else.
Mhm. Yeah. So I always did both wedding invitations and like general greeting cards.
Okay.
And think of that as like thank you cards, birthday cards, things like that. Like cards you buy at a store for any occasion. So I always did both, mostly weddings for sure. That was the bulk of my business. But I always really liked creating cards. So I was like, all right, let's do it. Um, so I always came out with like a Mother's Day collection, Christmas, like those big holidays, I would always put something out. And last Christmas, so about a year ago, it had been such a busy year. It was my first year. I was super, and even saying it out loud now, I was like, oh man, go me. I was like, I didn't know what I was doing. And then I was like overwhelmed by work. But I also had to like set boundaries for myself because, like you said, like I have a strict no work on Saturday rule because I was working Saturdays and Sundays, and I still work Sundays. If I don't get something done or I want to do something fun during the week and I have to work on a Sunday like that, that's just life. Um, but I knew I had to make a shift because wedding clients are very unique and very different than just, general stationery and greeting cards. It's a different, I mean, it's not like one-on-one design work with a couple. It's creating something, making sure that a lot of people like it, and then getting it out there, shipping, putting it in stores, all of that stuff. So I knew I had to make a shift, and I was scared because my biggest business was the wedding business. And I was just like, I don't want to like sunset my wedding clients, like my future wedding work to do something that wasn't bringing me as much money, right? Because I wasn't putting in as much effort. The pandemic made that decision for me. It was like, all right, it's time. And I'm like, oh boy. Um, so I had to figure it out. I'm like, all right, what am I going to create? How am I going to put it out there? And on top of that, just anxiety of things changing, things being a little bit, more unstable, right? Like, not just the world, because that's very unstable, but like my business. I was like, I don't have as much client, I don't have as much work, and like just freaking out. But I just had to like give myself that grace of, hey, you've always wanted to like create for yourself. Do it. Like just create. And then I came out with a few cards that have are still doing really well. One of them is like the sending socially distant hugs. Like I get orders for those every week. And that's awesome. Like I love that those have been going so well because I created that on a whim. I was just like, oh, this is fun. And then people loved it because people wanted that connection. And I knew that Pandulce could be a place where I can keep connecting people across the country or across the street. So I had to make that shift, and I still have wedding clients, especially for next year or micro weddings. Like I still have those clients, but the bulk of my work now is these stationary hubs. And I have to figure out like it's a complete shift. It feels like it doesn't feel like a different business, but it definitely is. Like operationally, it's different. Like it's way more, like I said, way more shipping, more creating for different card designs, and like being ahead of the holidays. Like I posted my holiday cards like a week ago, and I had a few friends that are like, "Man, you're so thirsty! Like it's so early," and I'm like, "But that's when people post them. Like that's it's not just me being obsessed with Christmas because I am. It's like as a business, you have to put your products out there early, and also you want to be first, right? You want people to see your stuff first, so you have to think about that constantly for like all these holidays. And it's been interesting. Like I even got this like new structure here to like package all of like my greeting cards because it's different, right? I have more product now, like more envelopes, more cards, more wax seals, like all of these like little details, because I love making things as obnoxiously cute as possible. It's just it's different. But this year had I had a lot of more downtime, so I just filled it up with different projects, and I like it. Like I really really enjoy the greeting cards that I do. It's different, but it's kind of like a double edged sword. Like and now I'm like, well, I miss my wedding clients, you know. But
Yeah.
last year I was like, I'm burnt out. So it's just I'm trying to find that balance still.
Yeah. Well, you have shifted beautifully. I feel like just watching you from the beginning of the year till now, you have done such a great job connecting the community, like the social media community, by just giving back. Like, and it's a simple, like, in your stories, you'll say, like, hey, shout someone out, and you'll just
Mm-hmm.
write their name in calligraphy letters. Um, and it's like such a simple
Yeah.
thing to put out there, but it's like right now this year, like it has been huge, and um, I just love that you have like just shown your passion for people and connecting, like you said in the beginning when you introduced yourself, like connecting the community of of people, like especially during a time when community and love and kindness is so much needed. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so yeah, so I give you like all the hand claps, all the raised hand emojis.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it has been so great to see just I don't know your heart and like the heart of who you are and also the heart of your business during this time, and it's been so encouraging. Um, so yeah, so I wanted to shift and talk about your name, Pan Dulce. Like, where did
Yeah.
it come from? I know that, like, because you create like funny things, and I
Yeah.
know we haven't talked about like your funny pun cards. But yeah, talk to me about the name and like where it came from.
Yes. So Pandusa Studio, when I was coming up with the name, I really wanted, I love puns. I want that to be like explicitly clear. I actually just got second place in an international pun contest, and
Yes,
I
oh
was
good.
over the moon about it. I love wordplay. And when I think about like, oh, why do I love wordplay so much? Like it's such a weird like dad joke. Like what's wrong with me? Like why do I love them so much? Um I love the play on words. Like I'm bilingual. I only speak Spanish with my parents. And I just think word language is so powerful. Like I identify with, especially with like my background, my Latinidad, it's language. It's not just like, yes, it's my culture and everything. There's so many different like nuances behind that identity, but language is huge for me. So that's why I love puns so much. So um, yeah, I love pan dulce. Who doesn't? Like it's sweetbread. It's sweetbread in Spanish. Um, and then when I realized I can say pan dulce, I was like, done, mic drop, like it's over. Once you like something clicks, you're just like done. I'm done. That's the name. And I really, really, really needed my business name to be um, in Spanish because I wanted my parents to be able to say it. I know it sounds really simple, but I didn't want my parents to not be able to say my business name. That said, my mom still calls it pan dulce sometimes, and I'm like, Mom, like, I named it for you, and then you're still messing it up, but it's fine. I love her. So I love puns, I love pan dulce, and I thought it was just like a fun mix of like just like wordplay and like my identity and then language, and it was in both English and Spanish. I just thought that was perfect. So yeah, that's how it came to be.
Yeah, that's great. Um, I want to ask, has anyone had, like anyone outside your family,
Yeah.
um, said anything about the name being in Spanish, or um, like the journey of, like, you, I know you said that you wanted to have a name that represented your Latinidad, and I, for me, that's so important as well.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but like, what has your journey been with like trying to hold on to that in a world where assimilation kind of
Yeah.
is at the forefront of everything, really?
Mm-hmm. So I haven't had anything negative. Like no one's been like, why is it pan dulce? Thankfully I surround myself with very open-minded, loving people, and they're not gonna talk crap about my name because there's nothing to talk about.
Yeah.
But I have had people mispronounce it, and that's just like because I was so focused on this is how you know I was not the most amazing businesswoman in the beginning. I was only thinking about my parents, right? And like selfishly what I wanted, like pan dulce, of course, that's so easy. How can people mess that up? Pan dulce, I get that all the time. People try to email me and they're like, I emailed you, you didn't get it. And I'm like, did you make sure it was pan dulce, not pan dulce? And they're like, oh my God, I'm sorry. That happens a lot. And then that's why, like, I'm like, go to my website and contact me there, like, or like, give me your email. Like, I'm always trying to, like, it feels like an unnecessary hurdle, but it is what it is. Like, people call it, a lot of non Spanish speaking people call it pan dolce, like Dolce and Gabbana, I think. I get pan dolce all the time. And I'm like, man, and it's just like it's your name. So when someone thinks of my business as Pan Dolce Studio, I'm like, who's that? I'm like, that's not me. So that always kind of irks me a little bit, but I can't control how people pronounce it. But all I can do is like keep saying my name and like have making sure that people respect that name. But in terms of like even like culturally, something that I have noticed is when I was doing my rebrand and I just like really leaned in because I needed my packaging to like really I needed to get my crap together, right? Like I needed it to be consistent. I wanted a system. Like when I was mailing things, I wanted like all of my things together, like not just like the stickers and the colors, but also like my thank you cards that I include with every order, the wrapping that it comes in. Like I just wanted everything to be clean and consistent. So when I was coming up with my brand, even just like my branding colors, like I agonized over that for so long because I'm like, I want it to represent me. I want it to be bright and kind of loud because I'm a little loud and very bright, but also my brand is like is it's like it's a star, right? Like it's bright. You open it up and you're like, oh my god, it's so pretty, and like I love getting that reaction from people. But one thing that I'm always, and I don't know if this is a good thing or not, but something that I'm always thinking about is I hope people don't just see me as like I want to say this carefully. I don't want people to see me as just like a Latina designer. My I am very loudly and proudly Latina, like Mexican. I'm from Little Village, southwest side of Chicago, all the way. Like I am not trying to like subdue that part of me and appear something different. It's more of I don't want to just appeal to my Latinx customers. I want to appeal to someone broader. So I want to make sure, like, I have a lot of white friends. I have a lot of black friends. Like, I have communities that are like that are my clients that don't come from my same background, and that's awesome, right? Like people shouldn't give a second thought to that. It's like, of course, everyone's gonna like. I never thought of that of like significant or special. It was just like, yes, of course, I want everyone to come to Panduce, and I'm always like, I don't want people to just see me as like, oh well, she only does, she only has, I don't know, because I'm Mexican, I'm gonna say like, oh, I only do like work with Mexican brides and their designs. It's like, no, I have all types of couples, and like I have all types of customers who ask me for custom cards, and I'm happy to do it. And there's so many things that I learned. Like I do a lot of gold foiling, and I had a client who was Vietnamese, and she's like, "Can you do this in foil if I send you the file?" And I'm like, "Yeah, of course." Like, I don't know what it says, I don't know what, but I'm gonna do it for you because I want to, like, and I will always want to make sure that Panduce is a space where everyone feels like, yes, I want my especially Latina women to feel like heard and empowered and shouted out, but I want everyone else to be welcomed. Um, and I know that it's kind of a tangent from like my name and brand, but because it is in Spanish, like I don't want people to be like, oh, well, she only does like Latina stuff. And it's like, no, I do. I do a lot of Latina stuff because it's awesome, but I do other things too, and I hope that translates in how I represent myself and how I speak to other people and everything because I want to be really inclusive.
Yeah, and I feel like the way that you put yourself out there on social media, and even like on your website and your whole brand in general, like I feel that. Like I feel like you are uh, an artist that's not just in a box, and you're an artist that happens to be Latina, and you want everyone to feel like they're included in the community. Um, so I think you do a really good job of that in your branding, in your social media, in everything. So I do feel that personally. And if you're not following her yet, you should be following her. We'll give you all those links at the end. But
And a
yeah,
quick little note, there is nothing wrong. I just want to make sure that like there's nothing wrong with only doing design for your community. I love those brands, and I think as a business owner, you start to go through like what's my brand's identity and then what's my identity, and like you just try to put out whatever feels most comfortable to you. So all power to all brands who are like at least putting themselves out there authentically, and that's like the most important thing.
yeah, for sure. I feel like that's come up in like what I do as well.
Mm-hmm.
Because people have asked me, do you have any photos or prints from Puerto Rico? Or have you ever traveled to this country, Guatemala? And I'm just like, as much as I would love to do that, I don't feel like that would be like me because I am Mexicana. My family's from Mexico, and that's where my heart is. Um, I'd be more than happy to like go and travel with someone else and have them tell the story of their um, country of origin or their roots or their culture and help them do that for themselves. But like for me, I have put myself in that like I'm going to offer things from
Mm-hmm.
Mexico and photos from Mexico. So yeah, so I don't think that there's anything
Yeah.
wrong either way. Um, but yeah, the way that you have made your brand is really just so inclusive and very community based, which is, I feel like that just speaks to like being in Chicago. I feel like
Mm-hmm.
we're, especially like in the area that you're in. Like there's a lot of, yes, there's a lot of Latinos, but
Yeah.
and like the Latinx community is thriving in the side of Chicago, but like we have neighbors
Oh
in
yeah.
that like are of different um, Latinx origins, not just
Mhm.
Mexican. And there's it's just very like diverse. You can have very diverse circles and friends um,
Mhm.
in the Chicagoland area.
Yeah.
Okay, so I want to shift and I want to ask the questions that I ask everyone.
Yeah.
This is a podcast where I want to be able to elevate um, not just our culture, but the next generation of people, whether they're business owners or artists, um, or just interested in finding more people that are like them. Um,
Mhm.
but I wanted to ask, are there any patterns or limiting beliefs that you had to work through to get to where you're at?
Specifically with identity or just in general?
Yeah, let's go with identity, or like how have your have you had to break through any barriers in your own like mind, whether it's because of
Mm.
culture or upbringing, whether that's like for business or for just like you said, identity.
Yeah. Um, I had to get, I don't ever want to create something that wasn't even culturally, like, even like us, like we're both, Mexicanas, like, but we both have probably, right, like very, very nuanced upbringings, even though we're probably so similar. Everyone has their own um, childhood and memories and traditions and rituals that you follow. And there are so many things that I create, but I want to make sure that they're things that I understand and that I'm comfortable with. Like it sounds again simple, but like papel picado, right? Like that simple bunting design, I'm comfortable with that. And then I can challenge myself to like create something more intricate and foil it. And how am I going to place it? All of these things, like the technical things, but the culture behind it is like, I feel comfortable with that because that's something that I connect with. So I don't ever create something just because it's part of this overarching Mexican identity. I was raised Catholic, but I don't put, I don't practice anymore. So I never put out anything religious. And there are some people that do, and that's awesome and it's beautiful, but that's nothing that I would create. So I had to be like, it kind of like challenged me to think of like, oh man, like how, besides language, like what are the other things that connect me to my identity and how can I share that? So it seems simple when I like make a feliz cumpleaños card, but it's like so much went into it. It's like, okay, it's in Spanish and like, okay, can people read the calligraphy and like what kind of flowers am I using? I want to use dahlias because they're native to Mexico and like all these very small details that people might not notice, but it's like I had to really confront what what's comfortable and what's um authentic to me. I don't want to just create something just because I feel like people will like it. I want to make sure I like it too because I'm going to be creating it. So those are like things. It's not something that I had to like break through, but something that I definitely had to explore a lot within myself of like what is my Latinidad and what are the things that I want to share about it.
Yeah, yeah, that's great. I think there's a lot of like marketing and hype around uh, Mexican or Latinx holidays, um, and it's growing in the U.S. And so
Mm-hmm.
it's so important to be able to stay true to yourself and who you are, rather than just like trying to ride the wave of
Yeah.
like all the things that are about conchas or all the things that
Yeah.
are like about Cinco de Mayo. Um, yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Um, Okay, and maybe you already answered this when you talked about your mom, but what's the most inspiring feedback that you've received from someone else? to help you?
Um, it's So there were two instances that come to mind. One was, yeah, my mom, of course. I mean, she's the best. So just having her, and that was before my journey, right? Like before I started anything, I had someone in my corner who believed in me and was like, "You are meant for something else." Not even just like you're meant for greater things. It's like you're just meant to do something else, and like it will just inevitably be greater because I feel like we're always improving ourselves little by little. Um, so that was really pivotal to me in my story. And a note that I got recently was over the summer when the Black Lives Matter movement was rightfully picking up a lot of media attention and steam and anger because it's baffling. This whole like it's terrible. It fucking sucks. Sorry, I swore. It really
Yeah.
sucks.
No, it's fine. Yeah.
And I saw someone post. It was actually a friend of mine, a good friend of mine. She posted something about there were people who were sending birthday cards to the Louisville Attorney General's office because it was Breonna Taylor's birthday. So they're like, "Oh, send a birthday card to the AG's office to let them know that we're pissed." And I thought, oh, this is probably dumb, but I'm going to put it out there that I'll send a card on your behalf. No cost, no nothing. And I got like 800 submissions. And that was like my little viral moment. And I was just humbled, super, super humbled by it that people wanted to be a part of it. Um, and I had a Black woman reach out to me, submitted her name, gave me the info that I needed. And then I told her once I like did everyone's cards, like I was like sending them notes one by one, like your card has been created. Thank you so much. And I told her like your card's been created. Awesome. And she's like, you are an anti-racist. And I was just like, am I? Like we never feel like we're enough with our own community, let alone someone else's, or like the Black community. Like I'm not a part of it, right? I'm not Black, but like we still care. We should all freaking care. And for someone to tell me that, it like and it was like at the point where I was like handwriting all of these and they were not in calligraphy. I could not have done 800 in calligraphy, but I was like handwriting, and then I was like stamping and folding, and I'm tired, right? Like my hand hurt, like my wrists, I've always just had issues, so I was just like exhausted. And then I get this note, and I was like, "Thank you." Like, you didn't have to send that, but thank you. Like, and it kind of like helped me push forward. You never know, and I share that anecdote to say, like, you never know how people are gonna um, react to your work or how they're gonna take your words, or they're like you just don't know what influence, whether good or bad, that you're gonna have in someone's life. And that's why Pan Dulce has enabled me to be more vocal. I'm not as vocal. I'm still vocal on my personal Instagram and in my life. I'm very vocal, but putting it out there on the internet, like you always want to make sure that it's authentic and you're not like being fake or just riding that bandwagon. And I really did feel with this card campaign, it was like, this feels so wholly authentic to like me. First of all, I love cards. I filled them with glitter so people would open them and then they'd be covered in glitter. And I was just like, that feels like me. And I just felt like just like another little moment where it was like, I am doing something that feels really authentic to me, and someone noticed, and that was nice. And I don't do it for to get noticed. Like if you do it to get noticed, you're never going to feel satisfied. But it was just a really nice note, and that's why I continue to like share sassy quotes on mirrors to like practice my calligraphy and also share a message, because people share those, and I want people to see that, that people are out here thinking the same thing they are.
That's amazing. And I did follow you through that whole
Yeah. And I think I made a card for you. I'm pretty sure I did.
I think we did. I was like, include us. And I felt bad because I knew that you had a ton of cards or submissions.
No,
Like,
and people were like, you probably have too many, but if you can squeeze me in. And I was like, I did every single one, and people donated way more than I needed. And I ended up using it to like cover supplies. And then the rest I donated to local organizations here in Chicago. I wasn't awesome about sharing that because things were crazy, but I was like, I donate to Brave Space Alliance and Healthy Hood Shy. Just all the excess money that I had because I was like, I didn't do this for the money. Like I did this because I wanted to, and it was awesome. People are awesome.
Yeah,
I mean,
they
people suck
are.
sometimes, but it was just a nice moment where you're like, wow, people are really banding together for something,
Yeah.
and not just the card campaign. I'm talking about the whole like Black Lives Matter movement.
Yeah. Yeah. I actually like broke my quarantine or like social distance like
Mhm.
during that time to go out
Yeah,
and protest.
yeah,
Um, and it was just so
same.
inspiring. It was,
Yeah,
yeah, beautiful to see the community.
yeah,
Okay, last question. What
yeah.
is some encouragement that you would want to send to the next generation? So these are like the next generation of um, business builders or the next generation of people going to school. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, I think you said it earlier where you're like you don't know when to start or you're like oh it's going to take a long time and even with my calligraphy like it's hard to start because you're like oh I suck like I'm never going to get better but then like look at me now and it's I feel successful and accomplished in it. um you just have to start even if it's like for business owners specifically like just start just like if you don't want to do it anymore that's fine but if you want to keep going like you just have to start. And for people who are just starting anything like school or going through it like I don't know it sounds so cheesy but like I'm so ridiculously grounded by my family, by my parents specifically. And I'm grateful that my husband's parents are also, they're Mexican, but I'm grateful that their experience also resonates with like what I grew up with. And then we can talk about it and stuff like, just like we all have something that grounds us and really lean into it. Like there were in high school, I went to an all white high school and it was hard and I was ashamed to be from Little Village. Straight up I was like super ashamed. And then one day I like was just like man I'm awesome like I'm from a part of Chicago that no one ever gets to see and like that's great and like just like really own like where you're from and what you like what grounds you. Just like really lean into it because it plays a much bigger role in our identity and what we do every day than we might realize. So just lean into it and be proud of it. Whether your past is like great or bad, like that molds you and just like really own it so it doesn't take over you and control you.
Yeah. Ah, I love that. Oh my goodness. This whole conversation has been amazing.
Yay!
And I just wish we could be in person, like
I
sipping
know!
coffee.
Like drinking
Uh,
coffee.
yeah.
It's like
Oh
another
man.
round of coffees.
Oh man. Hopefully next year we'll get together
Yeah.
in person. Um, but before we leave, why don't you tell us where we can find you? Instagram,
Yeah.
Facebook, social, like website,
Yeah.
all the things.
So my Instagram is Pun Dulce Studio. Pun is Pun. Pun Dulce Studio, and my website is pundulce.com. And I am very open to questions that anyone ever has for anything. So yeah, follow me and contact me and with anything.
Yes, and all her stuff is so beautiful on her Instagram, all her creations. And then also inspirational. Like all your posts always make me smile or like proud of um, the culture. So
Thank you.
yeah. Anyway, thank you so much for talking with me. Um, I'm so excited to have this like go live and for everyone to hear your story. So
Yeah,
thanks.
thank you so much, Karina. You're awesome.
All right. Bye. Oh my goodness, isn't Gabriela just so awesome? If you haven't checked out her Instagram page yet, you're seriously missing out. Her whole feed is beautiful and so inspiring. I love all of her designs. I even use her cards as thank you notes in my own packaging. I have two if you're watching online. You can see I use the papel picado and the one with some cactus. You can find all of her information on the website elevatinglacultura.com. And if you enjoyed this conversation, please share, take a screenshot, post on Instagram at Elevating La Cultura, or send me a DM. You can also comment on our YouTube video if you're watching online. I always like to hear from people and how they resonate with the stories that I share. All right, so go on, enjoy the rest of your day, afternoon, evening, whenever you're listening, y nos vemos next week. Adiós.